They predicted Trump becoming president. They predicted Disney buying Fox. They predicted smartwatches, autocorrect, even a global pandemic. And somehow, they did it all before it happened. If you spend even 5 minutes online, chances are you've come across one of those videos. A split-screen comparison between a Simpsons episode and a real-world event. A bizarre prediction buried in a cartoon from decades ago that somehow came true. To some, it's a joke. To others, it's evidence. Evidence that The Simpsons might just be more than a cartoon, that behind its yellow characters and slapstick humor lies something strange, maybe even a little unsettling. Because how does a show written in the 90s keep predicting the future of the 2020s? Are the writers psychic? Is Matt Groening some kind of time traveler? Or is there something else going on here? Let's break this down. To understand how The Simpsons predicts the future, we need to understand what The Simpsons really is. It's not just a cartoon. It's not just a comedy. It's the longest-running scripted TV show in American history. Over 700 episodes, 34 seasons, and counting. Since 1989, The Simpsons has been holding a mirror up to the world, satirizing politics, pop culture, technology, economics, and just about every human behavior you can imagine. Which brings us to the first clue in this mystery: volume. When you create over 700 episodes of content, filled with rapid-fire jokes, cultural references, and over-the-top parodies of current events, some of it is going to accidentally become true. It's inevitable. Statistically speaking, The Simpsons is playing the lottery every week, and when you play that often, eventually you hit the jackpot. But this alone doesn't explain how so many of their predictions are oddly specific. Like the 1995 episode where Lisa wears a smartwatch, or the 2010 scene where Milhouse guesses that Bengt Holmstrom will win a Nobel Prize 6 years before he actually does, or the one where they show Donald Trump descending that golden escalator years before that exact scene played out in real life. So what's really happening? Let's talk about the writers, because here's what most people don't know about The Simpsons. The writing team is stacked, not with Hollywood celebrities or typical sitcom writers, but with some of the smartest minds in entertainment. Jeff Westbrook, one of the show's longtime writers, has a PhD in computer science from Princeton. David X. Cohen has a degree in physics from Harvard. Al Jean, one of the original writers and producers, graduated from Harvard at age 20. Another writer, Ken Keeler, has a PhD in applied mathematics. These are people who don't just write jokes. They understand the world. They read. They research. They think about the future. They know how to identify trends, how to ask, what if, and how to turn that into comedy. So when the show made a joke in 2000 about Donald Trump becoming president, it wasn't a psychic prediction. Trump had already been floating the idea of running for office as far back as 1987. The writers were simply taking an absurd real-world possibility and turning it into satire. And when The Simpsons showed Disney acquiring Fox, a full 19 years before it happened, that wasn't prophecy either. By the late 1990s, media consolidation was already in full swing. The idea that a giant like Disney could swallow up other entertainment companies was completely plausible and ripe for parody. This leads us to an important distinction. The Simpsons doesn't predict the future. It extrapolates it. It takes the world as it is, the trends, the behavior, the power structures, and pushes them to their logical extreme. In many ways, the writers are like social scientists, asking, if things keep going the way they're going, what happens next? And sometimes the real world catches up with the satire. But there's another layer to this, a psychological one. Let's talk about confirmation bias. When we see a Simpsons clip that seems to predict a real-world event, our brains light up. It feels uncanny, coincidental, maybe even magical. And because it's so memorable, we latch onto it, we share it, we believe it. But what we don't see, what never goes viral, are all the things The Simpsons got completely wrong. Like when they predicted hover cars by the year 2010. or robot mayors, or that the world would end in the year 2000. In fact, the vast majority of predictions the show has made never came true, but nobody shares those on TikTok. They're forgotten. This selective memory, where we remember the hits and forget the misses, is what fuels the myth, the illusion that The Simpsons always gets it right. But the reality is far more grounded. There's also another trick at play: post-diction, where events from the past are reinterpreted to match current events. A great example is the Trump escalator moment. The 2015 footage of Trump descending an escalator after announcing his candidacy was compared to a Simpsons clip that looks nearly identical. But here's the twist: the Simpsons clip didn't air in 2000. It was created after the event, in a short parody referencing what had just happened. But because it got mixed in with the other examples, many people assumed it was another early prediction. So, between confirmation bias, post-diction, and sheer probability, the mystery starts to unravel. But there's one more factor, the one that gives this theory its staying power: timing. We live in a world that feels increasingly surreal. Reality itself is starting to resemble satire. Politicians are celebrities. Social media dictates the news cycle. Conspiracy theories are mainstream. It often feels like we're living in a cartoon. So when we see that The Simpsons predicted something, it validates that feeling. It makes the chaos feel a little more scripted, a little more understandable. Because if a cartoon saw this coming, maybe it was always meant to happen. But here's the truth: The Simpsons doesn't predict the future. It observes the present, obsessively, hilariously, and sometimes disturbingly well. It takes real-world trends, exaggerates them, and uses them to create stories that are absurd but not impossible. That's not prophecy, that's satire. And good satire doesn't predict the future. It just understands the present better than most. So when the future starts to feel like an episode of The Simpsons, that's not because the show is ahead of its time. It's because the world is just catching up to the joke.